Disclaimer: this story contains mature themes intended for adult viewers. Viewer discretion is advised. It was past midnight when the house finally went quiet. The only sound was the faint hum of the ceiling fan and the soft rhythm of my own breathing. I had just turned off the lamp when I heard the gentle creak of the door. At first, I thought it was just the wind, or maybe my imagination playing tricks. But then I felt the mattress dip beside me. My heart skipped. Someone had slipped into my bed. The warmth of another body brushed against my back, cautious, hesitant, familiar. I froze, breath caught in my throat. A low whisper followed, barely audible but enough to send a shiver down my spine. "Sorry. I couldn't sleep." It was him, my stepson. I turned slowly, the dim light from the hallway tracing the outline of his face. His eyes met mine, nervous, guilty, yet soft, like he was waiting for me to tell him it was okay. For a moment, neither of us spoke. The air between us thickened with something unspoken, something we both felt but couldn't name. I could hear my heartbeat, faster now, echoing in the silence. The faint scent of his cologne mixed with the warmth of the blanket, making the space feel smaller, tighter. His hand brushed mine by accident, or maybe not. I couldn't tell. But that tiny touch was enough to make my pulse race. "You shouldn't be here," I whispered, though my voice betrayed me, trembling just enough to reveal everything I was trying to hide. "I know," he murmured, his voice low and deep, almost a breath against my skin. "But I just needed to be close for a while." Outside, the wind rustled the curtains. Inside, time seemed to stop. I didn't move. Neither did he. Every second stretched, thick with confusion and longing. I could feel the heat between us, the weight of every unspoken word hanging heavy in the dark. Then, another sound. Footsteps. From the hallway. "Dad." We both froze, eyes wide, hearts pounding in sync. Disclaimer: this story contains mature themes intended for adult viewers. Viewer discretion is advised. The morning light crept through the curtains, painting soft lines across the bedroom wall. Everything looked ordinary again, the same quiet home, the same breakfast table, but nothing felt the same. I sat across from my husband, stirring my coffee long after the sugar had dissolved. His face was buried in his phone, as usual, reading work messages before heading out. Between us was silence, familiar, heavy, and safe in the way routines often are. "Did you sleep well?" he asked absently, not even looking up. I hesitated, fingers tightening around the cup. "Yeah. I think so." He smiled faintly. "That's good." Then he kissed my cheek, quick, practiced, and left. The front door shut, and the sound echoed through the house like an ending. For years, our marriage had been built on politeness. We didn't fight, we didn't even talk much anymore. We existed in the same space but lived separate lives, as if the years had quietly drawn invisible lines between us. And in those empty spaces, loneliness had found a home. That's when he, my stepson, became the only presence that broke the silence. He had moved back home a few months ago after college. At first, I thought it would just be temporary, but soon his laughter-filled corners of the house I'd forgotten could feel alive. He'd help with small things, fixing a light, cooking when I was tired, or just sitting near me when the house felt too still. I told myself it was innocent, that it meant nothing. But sometimes, when he looked at me with those steady eyes, too knowing, too kind, I'd feel something shift inside me. One afternoon, I found him in the kitchen, sleeves rolled up, washing dishes. Sunlight streamed in, catching the edges of his face. He looked up and smiled. "You're quiet today," he said. "Just tired," I replied. "From what?" he teased gently. "You never stop moving." There it was again, that easy warmth, that pull I couldn't explain. He stepped closer, handing me a towel, his fingers brushing mine. The touch was fleeting but sent a rush through me I couldn't ignore. "I can help more, if you want," he said softly. I should have said no. I should have drawn a line. But instead, I nodded. Later that evening, while my husband worked late, we ended up on the couch watching an old movie. Halfway through, my head rested against the cushion near his shoulder. Neither of us spoke, yet the silence between us wasn't empty, it was alive. Every movement, every breath, every glance carried weight. It was dangerous, the way my heart reacted, the way his eyes lingered when he thought I wasn't looking. Because underneath that quiet calm, something was slowly unraveling. Disclaimer: this story contains mature themes intended for adult viewers. Viewer discretion is advised. The air in the house felt different that night, thicker, heavier. My husband was in the shower, humming softly, while I stood by the kitchen counter drying my hands. Behind me, I felt a quiet presence. When I turned, he was there, my stepson, leaning against the doorway, his eyes fixed on me in a way that made my breath catch. He didn't say a word, but his gaze spoke everything his lips couldn't. I tried to look away, to busy myself with something, anything, but my hands trembled slightly. "You look tired," he said finally, voice low. "I'm fine," I murmured, forcing a small smile. He stepped closer, slow, deliberate. "You shouldn't have to do everything alone." "He never notices, does he?" My heart thudded in my chest. That line, so soft, so careful, still hit harder than it should have. "He's just busy," I said, though even I didn't believe my words. His eyes softened, but his jaw tightened. "You deserve more than that." Something inside me twisted, guilt, confusion, maybe longing. I wanted to step back, but my feet wouldn't move. The warmth of his presence filled the narrow space between us. I could hear my pulse, feel the heat radiating off him. Then came the sound of the shower turning off upstairs. Reality hit like a slap. I exhaled sharply and turned away, pretending to arrange something on the counter. "You should go," I whispered. But instead of leaving, he lingered a moment longer. "You know I can see it," he said quietly. "The way you look at me when you think I'm not watching." That made me freeze. I didn't respond. I couldn't. The silence that followed was deafening, full of what neither of us dared to admit. Then, just as suddenly, he left, his footsteps fading down the hallway, leaving the scent of his cologne behind. I stood there, staring at the empty space he'd just occupied, breathing unevenly. Upstairs, my husband called my name, asking if I was okay. I swallowed hard, forcing my voice steady. "Yeah, just coming up." But my reflection in the glass window betrayed the truth: flushed cheeks, wide eyes, and a heart caught between guilt and desire. Disclaimer: this story contains mature themes intended for adult viewers. Viewer discretion is advised. It was raining hard that night. Thunder rolled somewhere in the distance as I stood by the window, watching water slide down the glass. My husband had gone out of town for work 3 days, maybe 4. The house felt too quiet, too big, and too alive with thoughts I didn't want to face. Then, a knock on my door. I turned, startled. It was him. My stepson. His shirt was damp from the rain, hair tousled, eyes shadowed with something I couldn't quite read. "Power went out in my room," he said. "Mind if I stay here for a while?" I hesitated, but only for a heartbeat. "Of course," I whispered, stepping aside. He walked in, the soft glow of candlelight flickering across his face. The air between us crackled like static, every move, every glance, felt like a risk. I could hear the rain drumming harder outside, trapping us in this tiny world where time seemed to bend. He sat at the edge of my bed, the mattress dipping under his weight. I stood a few steps away, trying to calm the racing pulse in my neck. The candlelight caught in his eyes, turning them darker, deeper. "You've been quiet lately," he said, voice soft. "Did I do something wrong?" I shook my head, but the words didn't come. He rose slowly, closing the distance between us until I could feel the warmth of his breath. "No," I finally managed. "You didn't." Lightning flashed, illuminating his face for a split second, so close, so careful. We both froze, caught in the pull of something that felt both wrong and inevitable. His hand lifted slightly, as if to reach for me, but he stopped halfway. The silence was louder than the thunder outside. "You should go back to your room," I whispered, though my voice trembled. "I will," he said, taking one small step closer, "if you tell me to." I looked at him, every muscle in my body screaming to keep distance, yet every heartbeat pulling me closer. The next clap of thunder shook the window. The candle flickered. And in that split second before the flame went out, he leaned in. Disclaimer: this story contains mature themes intended for adult viewers. Viewer discretion is advised. The storm had passed, but the silence it left behind was louder than thunder. The air still carried the smell of rain, and the flickering candle cast trembling shadows across the room. He was still standing there, my stepson, his eyes locked on mine, waiting for something neither of us dared to name. "I can't keep pretending," he said finally, voice breaking through the heavy quiet. My breath hitched. "Pretending what?" "That I don't feel anything when I look at you." The words fell like a confession and a curse all at once. My chest tightened. I wanted to stop him, to tell him it wasn't right, but my throat closed around the truth, that I had been pretending, too. "You don't mean that," I whispered, though every part of me knew he did. He stepped closer, not to touch me, but to make sure I couldn't look away. His voice shook, but his gaze didn't. "You look at me like you're waiting for something to change, like you want to feel alive again." My pulse raced. "You shouldn't say things like that." "Then tell me I'm wrong," he challenged softly. I opened my mouth, but no words came. The silence between us was an answer neither of us wanted to hear. And that's when the front door opened. We both froze. The sound of keys hitting the counter echoed through the hall. My husband. He was home early. Panic surged through me. I stepped back, creating space, but it was too late. My husband's voice called from downstairs, calm, unaware. "Honey? You awake?" I forced a breath, heart hammering. "Why, yes. I'm up here." My stepson looked at me, guilty, fear, and something like heartbreak flashing across his face. "You should go," I whispered urgently. But before he could move, my husband's footsteps approached the stairs. And then, the door creaked open. The sight that met him froze time, his wife standing in the middle of a dimly lit room, candlelight flickering, and his son, inches away, eyes wide, words caught in his throat. "What's going on here?" he asked, voice low, suspicious. For a long moment, no one spoke. The rain outside began again, soft and steady, as if mocking the stillness inside. I looked at my husband, the man I'd loved, the one I'd drifted from, and then at the boy who'd seen the emptiness I'd tried so hard to hide. Tears stung my eyes. "It's not what it looks like," I said, though even I could hear the doubt in my voice. The candle flickered one last time before dying out, plunging us into darkness, the moment breaking like glass. Disclaimer: this story contains mature themes intended for adult viewers. Viewer discretion is advised. The candlelight had gone out, but the silence burned brighter than any flame. My husband's eyes darted between us, confusion twisting into disbelief, then anger. His voice was calm at first, too calm. "I asked a question," he said, stepping into the room. "What's going on here?" My stepson started to speak, but I raised a trembling hand to stop him. Please, it's not what you think. He laughed bitterly. Then tell me what to think, because from where I'm standing, this looks like betrayal. His voice cracked on that last word. It wasn't just anger, it was pain. The kind that came from years of distance suddenly collapsing into one sharp moment of truth. Tears welled in my eyes. We didn't do anything. You have to believe me. He stared at me for a long moment, searching my face for the woman he used to know. Didn't do anything, he repeated. Then why does he look at you like that? I turned to my stepson. His jaw was tight, his eyes full of regret. Because I care about her, he said, voice low but steady. Because you stopped seeing her a long time ago. The room went still. My husband's expression changed, shock first, then rage. You don't get to talk to me about my marriage, he snapped. You have no idea what you're. Enough. I cut him off, my voice breaking. Both of you. The outburst startled them. For the first time, the house that had been filled with unspoken words finally echoed with truth. I turned to my husband, trembling. You think this happened overnight? That one moment erased everything? You stopped noticing me, you stopped being here. I've been lonely for years, and I didn't even realize it until someone finally saw me again. My husband's face softened, just for a second. Then he looked at his son, hurt layered over shame. You had no right, he whispered. I know, his son said quietly. And I'm sorry. I never meant to cross that line. The tension broke. The storm outside faded into drizzle, as if the world had exhaled with us. My husband turned away, silent for a long moment before saying, I need time. Then he left the room, his footsteps echoing down the hall. When the door closed, the air shifted. My stepson stood there, eyes glistening, torn between guilt and longing. This isn't how I wanted it to end, he murmured. Maybe it isn't the end, I said softly, unsure if I meant it for him or for the life I'd just shattered. Disclaimer: this story contains mature themes intended for adult viewers. Viewer discretion is advised. Days passed after that night, yet the echoes of it lingered everywhere, in the silence at breakfast, the closed doors, the unspoken apologies. The storm outside had gone, but the one inside our hearts took longer to settle. My husband had left for a while, needing space to think. I didn't blame him. Sometimes distance is the only way to understand what truly matters. I spent those days in quiet reflection, walking through the garden at dusk, listening to the sound of rain returning, softer this time, almost forgiving. When he came back, it was unexpected. I found him standing in the living room, suitcase still by the door, eyes tired but calm. For a moment, neither of us spoke. Then he said quietly, I should have been here, long before that night. My eyes filled. We both made mistakes, I whispered. But maybe this was what we needed, to remember how fragile love can be. He stepped closer, his voice soft, almost breaking. I don't want to lose you. I nodded, a small smile forming through the tears. Then let's start over. No secrets. No silence. He took my hand, and for the first time in years, it felt real, warm, grounded, honest. The distance that had haunted us slowly began to fade. Later that evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, I found my stepson in the garden, packing the last of his things into his car. The moment was bittersweet. He looked at me with that same gentle expression that had once made everything so complicated, and yet, somehow, had helped me find clarity. I'm leaving tomorrow, he said quietly. It's better this way. I nodded, my throat tightening. You helped me see something I'd forgotten, how to feel again. He smiled faintly. Then maybe that's enough. For a long moment, we just stood there, no guilt, no tension, just peace. The storm had finally passed between us, too. He reached out, gently taking my hand in farewell. "Take care of him," he said softly. "I will," I replied. "And thank you for everything." As he drove away, the night sky opened into a wash of stars. I turned back toward the house, where warm light spilled from the windows, my husband waiting inside. When I stepped through the doorway, he met me halfway, wrapping his arms around me, holding me close as if afraid to ever let go again.